Hey everyone, welcome to Screen Crush. I'm Ryan Airy. Spider-Man Far From Home is the 23rd film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it's filled with tiny connections to those many other 22 films. I'm going to break down several Easter eggs and things you might have missed, but first, big spoiler warnings for Spider-Man Far From Home and a great deal of the MCU are ahead. Let's start with the opening song, Whitney Houston's cover of Dolly Parton's I Will Always Love You. The first line of the song is, "If I should stay, I would only be in your way." In a way, this is like Tony Stark is speaking to Peter Parker and the audience from beyond the grave. He's telling us that he needs to step aside so there can now be a new marquee hero in the MCU. The song is probably best known from the soundtrack of the 1992 film The Bodyguard. In that movie, Kevin Costner is assigned to guard the body of Whitney Houston, and then he falls in love with her. This mirrors the relationship of Happy Hogan, Tony's old bodyguard, falling for Aunt May. The photo of Tony Stark shown in this opening montage is from the award show tribute to him in the very first Iron Man movie. The hilarious Midtown High News catches us up on world events, namely how everyday people are reacting to the heartbreaking, universe-shaking consequences of the past two Avengers films. The world is coping by calling it a blip and moving on like nothing happened. It's crazy that a year ago, all of us were reeling from the deaths in Infinity War, and now we're laughing when a marching band appears in the middle of a basketball game. Anyways, for this newscast, we see that the world thinks Captain America is dead, and there are also tributes to the Black Widow and Vision. The newscast ends by calling this a long, somewhat confusing road, referring to the 22 MCU films and the complicated time travel plot of Endgame. And then Betty says, now we're moving on to the next phase of our lives. This is a coy reference to how Far From Home is going to springboard us into Marvel's Phase 4. During Peter and Ned's conversation in the art room, you can see tribute art to Tony Stark all over the walls. This is the first indication that Peter's going to spend the movie surrounded by Stark's legacy. The art book on the table is called Brand New Day. This is an infamous story from the comics when Mephisto, the devil, saved Aunt May's life by essentially stealing Spider-Man's marriage. Speaking of MJ, she has a tiger on her shirt, a reference to Mary Jane's famous nickname for Peter in the comics.
Go get him, tiger.
Peter wants to buy MJ a Black Dahlia necklace because of the murder. That's referencing the real-life murder of Elizabeth Short, who was found cut in half in Los Angeles in 1947. This grisly murder is kind of referenced in the movie when MJ's necklace is broken in two. In the comics, the Black Dahlias are a gang who fight to make the streets safe for other women. Aunt May is raising money for a homeless shelter. In the comics and the most recent video game, she works full-time for a homeless shelter called Feast. Anyways, Happy Hogan shows up with a big donation check signed by Pepper Potts. In the background, you can see an old poster offering a $100 prize to wrestle Crusher Hogan. This is the same wrestler and cash prize that Peter Parker won way back in Amazing Fantasy number 15, Spider-Man's first appearance. The press asked Peter if he's going to be an Avenger, and I love that he's reluctant and scared about this. In Homecoming, he was all gung-ho for the superhero life.
Feel like I could be doing more.
But now he's falling more into the traditional Spider-Man story, where being the hero is more of a burden to Peter Parker. He even tells Ned later in the movie that he has too much responsibility. That's the closest we get to the iconic line,
"With great power comes great responsibility."
Afterwards, Peter is looking at a mural of Tony Stark, and you can really feel the expectations and pressure weighing down on him. He's like the Sean Lennon of superheroes. This suitcase has the initials BFP. This probably stands for Ben Parker. The F is for Franklin, not only Ben's middle name, but also a reference to founding father Benjamin Franklin, who Uncle Ben was originally modeled after. I don't see the resemblance. And the movie finally addresses Peter's spider sense in a cool new way. Like a lot of fans, I was wondering why Peter didn't seem to have or use his spider sense in the previous 4 movies.
You're the Spider-Man.
Though there were a few hints.
I don't feel so good.
Far From Home shows us that Peter does have his spider sense, he just doesn't trust it yet. Unlike the Raimi films, these movies aren't about Spider-Man. They're about Peter Parker becoming Spider-Man. It's like they're filling in what happened between Uncle Ben's murder and the first montage in the original Raimi film. On the airplane, Peter scrolls through a few MCU-centric documentaries. A spy thriller called Hunting Hydra, a proper noun gerund film called Finding Wakanda, a Nova lecture by Eric Selvig on the Einstein-Rosen Bridge. This is what he was researching with Jane Foster in Thor 1. A Tony Stark biopic called Heart of Iron, and an ominous-looking poster called The Snap, featuring the Infinity Gauntlet. And I find this interesting because it shows that the general public know about Thanos, the Snap, and presumably how bad the Avengers failed the first time they faced him. It'll be interesting to see how this affects the public's perception of superheroes in future movies, which was teased a little bit in the final post-credits scene. Ned and Betty's whirlwind relationship is straight from the comics where the couple were married. There's a giant mural of Tony in the airport in the Netherlands, and I gotta ask, if the world thinks Captain America is also dead, why doesn't he get a mural? Why is there no love for Cap? Anyways, in Venice, Martin Starr uses an old-timey film camera with a timer, just like Peter used to take pictures of himself in the comics. After the water elemental appears, the kids talk about a story they read on BuzzFeed about a man being transformed by an underwater generator. This is the actual origin of the Spidey villain Hydro Man. This origin is further alluded to by this boat behind Ned that reads ASM 212 or Amazing Spider-Man issue 212, the first appearance of Hydro Man. Director John Watts loves to hide Easter eggs in the license plates, and we've deciphered most of them, but a few went by so fast that I didn't catch them. So I would like your help in the comments. For example, HNM2601. What do you think that means? Let me know in the comments below. After Mysterio shows up, the kids describe him as a combination of Doctor Strange, Iron Man, and Thor.
He's no Spider-Man.
Later we find out that this was not an accident. Quentin Beck and his team modeled Mysterio to remind everyone of these specific heroes. Jake Gyllenhaal, by the way, almost played Peter Parker in Spider-Man 2. Tobey Maguire sustained a back injury while filming Seabiscuit, and Raimi was ready to replace him. That's why this gag is included in the movie.
My back! Oh, my back!
Nick Fury is waiting in Peter's room, mirroring this scene from Winter Soldier. Ned is wearing a t-shirt with a bear on it, and he's tranquilized like a bear. Peter is also wearing a symbolic t-shirt that says, "If you believe in telekinesis, raise my hand." This is actually a quote from the author Kurt Vonnegut. It essentially means that if you believe in something outrageous, be prepared to prove it. This is basically the plot of Far From Home. The people are so shaken by world events that they believe whatever Mysterio says instead of investigating or demanding real proof. Fury gives Peter Tony's glasses that we've seen in previous movies. And if you're wondering why he gave them to Fury to give to Peter instead of just giving them to Peter himself, I think it's because he wanted Nick to watch over him. Fury tells Peter, "Uneasy lies the head that wears the crown." This is from Shakespeare's Henry IV Part 1 about a king burdened by being king. Among Henry's troubles are his heir Hal, who's been frivolous and spending all his time in taverns. This foreshadows that Peter will initially abuse his power to further his romance with MJ. The AI in the glasses is called Edith, which stands for Even Dead, I'm Still the Hero. Edith is voiced by Dawn Michelle King, first AD on Far From Home and several other MCU movies. Anyways, when Beck talks about alternate Earths, he says that they're currently on Earth 616. This bullshit immediately indicates that Beck is a liar because everyone knows that 616 is the number of the main Marvel Comics universe and that the MCU is actually universe 199999. Beck claims he's from Earth 833. In the comics, this is the home of William Braddock. He's that Earth's Spider-Man who's based out of the UK. This is a nice nod to Peter's globetrotting in this film. The elementals that Beck claims to fight are also from the comics. They're powerful beings who were cast out of their own universe. They ruled an ancient kingdom for a while before they were banished to another universe by an artifact called the Ruby Scarab, which looks a lot like the red spider symbol on the back of Spider-Man's costume. When Peter says,
Mr. Fury, this all seems like big time. You know, huge superhero kind of stuff.
This is a reference to the big time story from the comics. Peter says that Thor used to be a myth and now he studies him in physics class. He asks about Doctor Strange and they say he's unavailable. In our Phase 4 video, I posited that the next threat Doctor Strange will face will be from another dimension caused by damage from the Avengers' manipulation with the time stream. This movie, at least, hints that he'll be away from Earth for a while, so that could pan out to be true. When Peter mentions Captain Marvel, Fury says don't involve her name. And this is a weird answer that I dove into more heavily in our post-credits explained video if you'd like to check that out. Anyways, Fury gives Peter a suit that is reminiscent of the Spider-Man noir costume from the comics and Into the Spider-Verse.
Sometimes I let matches burn down to my fingertips just to feel something, anything.
The news reports call him Night Monkey, and guess what, you guys? Oh my god, Night Monkeys are real, and they're adorable. There's a tribute to Night Monkey with this license plate, 8N822386. This is a reference to Amazing Spider-Man 223, Night of the Ape. Peter causes a distraction by getting the kids to look outside of the bus, just like Ned did in Infinity War. He also had a physical altercation with Flash, now for the third franchise in a row. The license plate on Fury's car reads ASM 2865. That stands for Amazing Spider-Man number 28 from the year 1965, the first appearance of Molten Man, who kind of appears in this movie. In issue 55, Peter is taken to jail, and he's also briefly incarcerated in this film. But Peter doesn't want to be the hero everyone looks to, so he passes Edith on to Beck, and when he puts on the glasses, you can briefly hear the Avengers theme playing in a minor key. Mysterio's plan is basically taken from the Thunderbolts comics, where the Masters of Evil replace the Avengers. Beck's big reveal is filled with a couple great MCU Easter eggs. He invented BARF, the hologram technology seen in Civil War. Now, the Russo brothers, directors of Infinity War and Endgame and Civil War, teased that this tech would be shown in Endgame. Tony even carried an orange Pelican case that BTS photos revealed was labeled BARF. So maybe in Endgame's deleted scenes, the Avengers used this tech to reconstruct past events to help plan their time heist. Beck's head tech is this guy from Iron Man, one of many callbacks to the MCU's first film. Beck has also assembled a team that's basically a movie crew, complete with a screenwriter, VFX team, and a costumer. He even wears a mocap suit during the battles. This is all a nod to Beck's past in the comics, where he was a special effects artist in the movies before he became a villain. He even tells Peter that it's easy to sell illusions when people already believe them. He's not only talking about his own deceptions, but also the art of movie making. Special effects, like the shark in Jaws, can be minimalist, because the audience is willing them to be real. This team is united by their hatred of Tony Stark, and they feel like ordinary people are better off taking great power from the superheroes. So basically, Quentin Beck is Syndrome from The Incredibles. MJ reveals that she figured out Peter's secret identity.
I mean, it's kind of obvious.
Just like Mary Jane does in the comics. Another license plate spells out MTU 8379, a reference to Marvel Team Up number 83, published in 1979, when Spider-Man teams up with Nick Fury. And while Fury and Hill are fighting the Earth Elemental, a nearby license plate says ASM 463, a reference to Amazing Spider-Man number 4, published in 1963, the first appearance of the Sandman, since this elemental kind of looks like the Sandman. During the awesome mind trip sequence, Peter appears in his sweatsuit costume from Homecoming, and you can spot Avengers Tower in a snow globe. The snow globe, by the way, represent Peter's fear of his limitations as a hero, that he'll never be able to grow beyond his neighborhood. Mysterio appears as a giant. This is straight from the arc Mysterio Madness in Amazing Spider-Man number 66 and 67. After Happy shows up, Peter starts designing his new suit. The machine looks a lot like this device from Secret Wars 8, where Spider-Man first found his symbiote black costume. The Avengers theme plays in this scene as well, which is made to parallel Tony Stark building his Iron Man suit for the first time. And as Peter's scrolling through suits, you can briefly see the spider armor that was designed by artist Marcos Martin.
You take care of the suit, I'll take care of the music.
And when Peter finishes, Happy plays AC/DC's Back in Black, an homage to the very first scene of the MCU. The black and red color scheme of Peter's new suit is a cool combination of his no-tech black suit and his classic Spidey costume. During the climax at the Crown Jewels, Happy tries to throw a shield into a doorway, mimicking Captain America from the first Avenger. Oh, and here's another license that I spotted and I couldn't figure out. M95XV. If you think you know what this means, please let me know in the comments below. So, at the end of the movie, Mysterio and Spider-Man are each battling for Stark's legacy. The bad guys represent all of his failures, while Peter embodies his redemption through superheroic acts.
I just wanted to be like you.
And I wanted you to be better.
At the end of the movie, we finally get to see this Spider-Man web sling through Manhattan. Like I said before, these movies have all been building to this point, when he's finally become the Spider-Man that we all know. As he swings with MJ, he takes a selfie, just like he frequently does in the PS4 video game. So he swings through what used to be Avengers Tower, which now has an atrium in the middle of it. They avoid showing us the tip of the skyscraper, though. This makes me wonder if they're leaving it open to be owned by, say, Norman Osborn, or maybe the Fantastic Four in future films. The construction wall in the final scene reads 1, 2, 3. We are excited to show you what's next. This is another meta moment where Marvel is building hype for the next stage of the MCU. During the stop motion end credits, Peter's face is split with Spider-Man's, a favorite motif from the comics. Now let's talk about those awesome post-credit scenes. First, that Beck frames Spider-Man so he'll be hated by the public. This, again, is a return to classic Spider-Man storytelling, along with the return of J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson. I loved this reveal. It's one of the best parts of any MCU movie.
He doesn't want to be famous?
and I'll make him infamous.
But then, as soon as they establish classic Spider-Man, they upend the entire franchise by revealing Peter's identity to the world. This also happened in the comics in the Civil War storyline, but that was later retconned by Brand New Day. In the MCU though, the secret's out, and I'm excited to see what's next for the franchise. Then we get the final post-credits scene that has some major hints for the future of the MCU that we covered in our last video. Well, that's all the Easter eggs that we found, but how about you? Let us know what you found in the comments below. And what did you think of Far From Home? Where does it rank with other Spidey films or other MCU films? If it's your first time here, please subscribe, ring the bell, do all the stuff. For Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Airy.